Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline Comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined, as always, by Cassisi Harris.
He's muted.
Oh,
sorry. Hey.
Jose Fuentes.
We have all been there, Cassisi. Hi, everybody.
And David Rios.
Hello.
And tonight we're going to be talking about Slice of Life comics. But before we get into all that, I do believe we have some housekeeping. And they said they put the ad in here this time, so I don't need to read it myself. So everyone, maybe you can have a Fun by Comic going right now. So let's go run that ad. That's right. Silverline Team Up number 2 is currently funding. We are on the front page of funbycomic.com. So if you just go to funbycomic.com, you'll find us on the front page.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We have raised 123% of our goal with 11 days still have to go. So if you want to help us push some stretch goals, some added perks, go ahead on over and pre-order your copy. Like you always say, these comics are already completed. You're not funding a pipe dream or something that'll never happen. This is you placing a pre-order in a system that's easier for us to manage.
Right. And pack it because that just gives Pete more work. Make him draw more stuff for you.
Absolutely. Okay. So before we get into tonight's topic, let's go ahead and break the ice. We'll discuss what we have been reading, playing, watching, listening to, whatever we've been ingesting this last week. I'll pass it off to CC first. What kind of media have you been taking on since last Tuesday?
So got caught up in Demon Slayer, X-Men
Nice.
97. Been reading The Art of Writing Comics.
Okay.
I had the book before, but now just going back through it. Just trying to sharpen my skill.
Absolutely.
And then, learning more about writing dialogue too. So I suck at it. So
being kind of bad at something is the first step to being kind of good at something.
yeah.
Right.
Jose, what kind of media have you been taking in?
I've been playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3.
Us. Yes.
The graphics on it are pretty awesome. But I have it up here. I kind of started rereading my Frame Noir. No, Framed Ink. That's what it was.
Hmm.
It's just a book about using spot blacks and like better techniques and fundamentals about inking. But I was talking with one of my nephews about it. Talking with his mom more to the fact, and they were talking about, they want to get into like doing different pencils and doing using like the pencil set that has the different grades of pencils, right? And they asked about inking and whatnot. I was like, this is a book that's like benefited me. Like definitely take it and like break it down and like learn new things. So
Which book is that again?
it's Framed Ink. I hit myself in the face with my glasses. And of course it's dark, I can't see it. Great perspective.
For our audio listeners, Jose is currently just scrounging around.
Yeah, sorry. That one and this one.
Nice.
Just a couple. I get. It's dark, so it's hard to see. But I keep them handy, like they're right up. You know what I mean, within arm reach, so I can go back and reference them. Like this doesn't look right. Like it doesn't. For some reason, something is just not. It doesn't have the depth that I want it to have, and so I'll go back and like, what am I missing? What can I add? So.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I guess the question that I have following that is, did you do a custom origin or one of the background origin characters for Baldur's Gate, and what kind of playthrough are you currently doing?
Custom. Always
Nice.
custom. And I'm playing Tiefling Paladin.
Nice. My first playthrough is also on the Paladin. I'm currently going through it again, this time doing Dark Urge Fighter, and it's like Blessing and Eldritch Knight.
Funny, I just learned that there was Dark Urge, like storyline, everything for it and whatnot. So like, I'm like, don't confuse me. Too many options. Don't do that to me.
Yeah, that's fair. Hey, David, what have you been taking on media-wise this last week?
Just finishing up X-Men and just reading some of the old, House of X stuff, and same old as I've been doing, just trying to get through some of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Dude, no spoilers, but friggin' X-Men 97 was friggin' awesome.
Oh, so yeah. Not just like one of the best pieces of like Marvel on screen recently, but I think just like one of the best pieces of media on screen. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
I won't spoil anything, but one of the things that I thought was really cool was that they brought Gates McFadden in to do a voice.
Yeah.
I won't say who or anything because I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought that was awesome.
Yes.
I had to go back and look and see who.
Look up those credits, yeah.
Right.
And Jawbone says it's so good. Yes, it is. Yeah. I have been. I need to catch up myself a little bit in the last couple episodes. Media-wise, this last week, I have started started a new playthrough in Baldur's Gate, doing the Dark Urge fighter playthrough. So when I have time, that's what I'm doing. But on that, haven't really had a chance to read much that isn't work related. So it's been mostly like marketing news. But we did get a long D&D session in on Sunday. We're going to try out the new Dungeon Master screen that I built, which I have photos of on my Instagram. But I put together I went through and did some woodworking and built a custom Dungeon Master screen that I could slide, that has a monitor built into the middle of it that I can run display cables to from the back. I have little like ports cut out. So yeah, that's cool.
That sounds cool.
Right?
So
getting all fancy and stuff.
Absolutely. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of what I've been up to.
Yeah, that and a shout out because my son graduated high school this past week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now on to the hard part of life.
Right. Paying bills.
Oh yeah.
Like his college. Oh wait, am I still paying for that?
I mean, if you haven't saved up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we are going into talking about Slice of Life comics tonight. So that is, I guess I'll open up the floor to you guys. Do you have any experience yourselves with the Slice of Life genre? Do you know what it is? Do you not know what it is? Are you well versed in it, or are you have no idea what we're talking about?
I would assume Slice of Life, and this is an assumption or a presumption, I should say. That's the genre of comics where it's not particularly anything superhero. It's like normal people going through life, and there's a series of actions that happen that make it interesting.
Yeah.
So I've had very little experience in those comics. I think that other mediums, I would consume that content more than I would in a comic. So it's very interesting it'll be an interesting discussion to hear how people really receive those comics. There is a cool one out though that I got to read before the Kickstarter happened. And they're going now and they're about 89% funded, which is a cool, it's like Garbage Men in Space basically. So
nice.
I think I've seen that.
That's a cool thing. Yeah, it's a really and the person who wrote it is pretty cool. So yeah, it's called Clove Hitch. If you guys go to Kickstarter,
okay, nice. I'll look it up. I do love when they take like a storyline that is where it is just people living their lives doing stuff, and they put like a really absurd context behind it, or like it's like either a job setting or whatever that is very strange and surreal almost. Yeah, so Clove Hitch, I'll have to look that up. Jose, what is your experience with Slice of Life comics?
I'll be honest, not a whole heap. There's a few things that in regards to comics, like there's one, and I like them because I think they take the Slice of Life comic books and make them into movies.
Yeah.
Right. So like Ghost World? Ghost World is like a OG, like at least like early 90s book or something like that, if not a little earlier than that. And that was cool. And Road to Perdition actually was a comic book. That was a Slice of Life comic. And it became like a Tom Hanks movie. But I didn't know it was a comic until I saw the movie first, and then I was like, oh geez, like I found out like this is a comic book? Like what the heck? And then I read the comic, and the comic was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I would argue also throwing into there is I Kill Giants is a Slice of Life. Even though there's like some So it's about this little girl, and she has like this with I think she called it Mjolnir. So it's like Thor's hammer, and she kills giants everywhere because they're trying to come and get her mom.
Oh
And
yeah,
in the movie, right? And I'm pretty sure it's the same in the comic. Only I don't think it's as much of a focus. But in the movie, mom has cancer, right?
yeah,
So the whole principle is that she's fighting off these giants that are trying to take her mom from her, right?
yeah,
Like in a sense, it's her coping with like trying to fight off cancer away from her mom.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you on that because because the fantasy elements, right, it's the character, it's the girl's imagination, and like it's her
Right.
living that experience. But yeah,
Like as soon as I saw our theme, like that's the first comic that came to my mind was I Kill Giants.
yeah. Okay, David, what about yourself?
Not a lot of exposure to that. I do see what Jose was talking about with I Kill Giants, but I wouldn't have thought of that on my own. 'Cause, like I said, I'm not used to dealing with a lot of that, but I do see, what Jose is saying. So I agree with that. That was I didn't read the comic. I just saw the movie stuff. So, yeah, it was very interesting.
I read quite a few slice of life comics, but mostly as webcomics. I haven't gone through and picked up a one of their collected volumes in a while. But usually I will follow their webtoons or their webcomics pages or the page on whatever and get the course there. And there's quite a few that either are related to the things that I find relatable that are funny. But it's usually kind of the crux of it is that sites of comics are usually more relatable than other comics are, and because that you might find them a little more humorous in terms of just your daily intake. So the reason why I brought this subject as well as kind of the other episodes we had the last couple of weeks is because for a lot of new creators moving into the space, I really wanted to provide a set of medium genres or ways of working in comics that they might have thought about, that maybe they didn't have an interest in comics, but they want to tell these kind of stories and didn't know that comics were a place where they could do that. Or just in general, just getting comics thinking you have to write capes and, kind of getting rid of that myth, because you can really tell any story you want through a comic book.
Yep.
And I have a few that I really like. One of Those Days. It's by Yehuda and Maya Devere. Essentially, it's just a couple that catalogs their stories hyperbolic way, and it's very funny about how one of the things that I got really into, got me hooked on their stuff, was when they cataloged the husband's man flu. Yeah, the husband is this big burly dude with a big black beard, and the wife is much smaller. And the comics I have where she's taking care of him or carrying him around the house and stuff like that, because this is for those of you
because
who
men are babies. We're babies when we're sick. Don't sugarcoat it. Put it out there.
I think I know what this is. Okay, we got it.
Yeah, it documents the pregnancy of their daughter and whatnot, like a toddler running around everywhere. It's freaking hilarious.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know this one. Yeah.
Another one that I have been enjoying a lot. This one. Adulted Sarah Scribbles. Yeah. very relatable if you are another creative person or have gone through like a creative program or something like that, because that is a lot of what she talks about, is just the weird interactions she has with people. And it's like, if you're a creative person, and like, how do you navigate adulthood, because your job probably looks different than everyone else, and you're trying to combine with different things. A bit more on the almost esoteric side of things. There's one called The Collected Essex County, which if you have not heard of, The Collected Essex County is essentially Jeff Lemire writing about his childhood.
Huh.
Yeah.
Jeff Lemire, he did the artwork for Little Monsters.
Yeah. And so he kind of, if you're interested in like the lives of comic creators and other creatives, that's an interesting read, because it is talking about how Jeff Lemire got inspired and how he got started in comics and all that stuff, and kind of going through his daily life.
Mouse. Is Mouse a slice of life comic?
Mouse?
Was it Art Spiegelman is like documenting
Yeah.
the life of his life of his dad?
Yeah, in a weird way it is. Yeah, it's a very dark one and deep one, but yeah. I guess kind of similarly, Vincent in Pieces is a slice of life about Vincent Van Gogh, but if you're familiar with his life was fairly tragic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Would you consider Dilbert a slice?
Dilbert, yes. Actually, a lot of Sunday Funnies would fall under slice of life. Doonberry, or was it? Is it Doonberry?
Kathy,
yeah.
Yeah, Doonberry is.
Yeah. But anything where the main story is the main drama or the main conflict, main story elements are in daily occurrences, not necessarily in high stakes, high fantasy. Yeah, so we kind of have touched on and talk about our experience with the slice of life comics. We hadn't touched on the characteristics of slice of life comics, the focus on everyday events and experiences. You'll notice that in some of them, there might be an emphasis on character development and relationships or lack thereof. Juneberry was very dynamic in how the characters grew, changed careers, got married, different things like that. Whereas almost parallel opposite, you'd have something like Dilbert or one of those days where the family, it's the family set, that's their dynamic, this is who they are, and it's about how that relationship interacts with the world around it, but that there's not necessarily a grinding or changing in that relationship to begin with, or as part of their action. Scenarios in general are either realistic or relatable, sometimes both, but like you said, with the trash doctors in space, not necessarily realistic, but definitely relatable. And often lacking a central or overarching plot. So a lot of it's going to be issue to issue or strip to strip, not necessarily, having a 5 issue epic arc that culminates in a boss fight.
There's a military one, Terminal Lance. I don't know.
Terminal Lance is so good.
It is. It's so good.
That's so good. That's a deep cut. Let's see, probably pull that up.
Terminal Lance?
Yes, I'm gonna get that thing pulled up. I think he actually put out a hardcover too. I think it's called White Donkey.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a very deep cut for anyone not in the know. Which one is appropriate?
Yeah, I was gonna say you may have a hard time. He's got some out there.
Oh, disclaimers. We need disclaimers, people.
All right, here we go. This is.
It's very inside though.
It's very inside baseball, yeah. But if anyone has a terrible boss, then you probably get something like this. You'd probably understand feeling like this is the way your boss feels. It's also if you did reenlistment in San Diego. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. Oh, this is great.
So Also, the coloring is newer. He used to just do black and white, but I believe he is now out of the Marine Corps, now out of the reserve, so now provides more time to actually focus on just creating each strip. But it's the same idea where it is smaller strips, and it is just these small vignettes of life in the Marine Corps or life around the Marine Corps.
Great.
Yeah. So
to see you reacting to it just made it that much more interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's just so funny. The little nuances.
Right. I mean, because yeah. Either you have like a great staff, or you feel like your staff just absolutely wants to murder everyone in their unit. So, yeah. Like, but that's yeah. That were like memories.
Mm-hmm.
I also just had something. There's a TikToker. I think his name is Goth Dad, but he's the vocalist for not Void Division. I think something Vision. It's a new like goth punk band, but he was talking about something, and then he mentioned Rip It, and I just like immediately went back and just dramatic thoughts.
Yeah.
All right. So, talking about this, we have a lot. It sounds like we've all had experience, whether we think about it or not, engaging with slice of life comics, and they probably have been more prevalent than we think they are. I mean, one to consider is Archie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I was gonna ask if Archie counts under that category.
Yeah. Because I mean, you definitely have like the regular Archie issues, which are very much as like high school drama, and then they do a bit like college and family drama, and the relationship dynamics, and it mostly just good laughs. However, they do have very funny and weird crossover events where they'll do a separate series, or it's not the mainline series, but a separate series, or have Archie versus Predator, Archie versus Alien.
Archie Afterlife. That's Archie with zombies.
Yes. Or Archie versus Punisher, where Punisher thought Archie was a drug dealer and tried to kill him.
There's another one. Archie, the one with vampire, where Archie, Veronica becomes a vampire.
Yeah, definitely.
There are some cool ones.
Yes. So we definitely have had experience engaging with slice of life comics, whether or not we think about it or not. So they're definitely present and they are popular. We're kind of getting into the creative side of things. I personally have not had much experience creating that side story, especially in a comic aspect. But you almost find yourself wanting to pull elements from that storytelling when you are engaging more human aspects into your stories.
Right.
You'll have moments where you'll take like 2 pages to have a more slow human experience with the characters, to try and get them know them in the middle of all the actions happening around them, with a spy story or a cape story or whatever. And that's where you'll take inspiration from a slice of life story. Like if you take away the laser beams and the telekinesis from X-Men, you could just have it be a slice of life love triangle between Scott, Jean, and Logan, because of how much time is spent defining their relationship with each other.
Right.
Well, aren't most good stories really the base and the foundation is the slice of life? Like a John Wick is an exception, right? Like John Wick or like Kill Bill. Those are like exceptions to a slice of life. It's just built around the action.
Yes.
But for the most part, you look at like The Matrix, right? It was here's this one thing.
Well, you want to have those day-to-day interactions that make the characters more relatable, that make you want to see how they grow and evolve. Right. And that also adds stakes to the big threat presented to them. Yep. I would say that you would see elements of slice of life in a John Wick and the way that he interacts. The whole thing with his dog, right?
Yeah.
But the way he picks up that new dog, the way he interacts with Caron and the manager, because they're just very like casual conversations, talking about work, getting checked in.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you end up having these moments where like you have these very high up stakes, and like it is the same thing where like it's an unrealistic world, but you cut to a moment of a relatable conversation. So yeah. So yeah, kind of your point there. In almost every story, you need those humanizing elements that you would see, like that throw in a slice of life into any story.
I would say for a young writer, and this is myself too, like if you cannot find the slice of life in your story, then you need to go back. I've had to do that several times, right? Like all I'm thinking of is action. This is not a real story, right? There's no the character isn't relatable in any way. You just have a whole bunch of action sequences. So go back and base it more on the slice of life with like the hint of action and stuff. So.
Yeah. And kind of like we were talking about with Mouse or Vincent in Pieces. It doesn't necessarily need to be uplifting or jovial or definitely slice of life.
Right.
In Wolf Hunter, the slice of life elements with Willard are him reflecting on how much he feels like he's in the wrong place, or how much he feels like he's no longer fully fit and functional like he used to be. Kind of a little more dour reflection, but if thoughts that if someone's been through like a terrible accident, or someone's been through like getting shot, like you're going to have weird thoughts regarding that situation and how it affects the rest of your life. CC's cat has joined us.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right, slice of life with Cassisi's cat.
Yeah, I mean, what is it?
What about Black Sad? Black Sad's a slice of life, right? It's a detective story, but
What'd you say?
was it Black Sad?
Oh, yeah, I forgot how you spell it, but yeah.
I probably even said it wrong. That says anything.
As I know, yeah, it was Black Sad. Yeah, how do you pronounce that? Because then it's a Spanish comic.
BLACKSAD. I think
I think it's
or
Black
is it
Sad.
2 A's?
Yeah. There you go. Let me grab this pulled up. For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is one of those comics that you kind of get taught about in school, because it is just like such an art thing. But
Yeah,
there's our day-to-day detective. And a lot of it is about the stuff in between cases. That's mostly about his interactions at the bar or with his mistress and
right.
things like that. Yeah. Yeah, so kind of talk about Carol was there. So things that like kind of mentioned to consider, and this kind of falls into really need to follow what's called the triangle of weird, or the rule of two. Everyone's used to the rule of three, right? Everything comes in threes. So like you hit a joke and you hit it 3 times. But the triangle of weird, or the rule of two, is that you can have a weird setting, weird characters, or weird theme, but you can't have all 3.
Fair.
Yeah. Pick 2 to make weird, and 2 to be normal, and then have the other one be the other and be weird or normal. So a setting, so we can have a normal characters and a normal theme. Trash collector guys, weird setting, they're in space. And they don't necessarily need to be like hard. It's not a 1 or 100 scale. You can do like things in between where you just make themes hyperbolic, or make characters hyperbolic, where they're still normal but they're just a little more amped up. Things like that. So there's going to be a lot on writing here in my next couple notes, but I think we'll jump to art here before we get back into more writing, since we're kind of talking on some writing elements. When you're telling whenever you're creating any sort of comic, you need to find an art style that complements the tone. And Kiwi, the Cube Tube. And this kind of becomes, I think, more so important, especially when you're telling a slice of life comic where you may not have explosions or energy pulses or stuff to dominate the screen or the panel. So I guess kind of from our art department here, what are kind of your thoughts on slice of life art styles? What are some differences or things you've noticed between slice of life and maybe a more casual?
From what I've noticed, there tends to be focus on like, I don't know, not so much quirky art style, but more like technique stuff, right? Because like you said, you don't have like all the zap lines or curvy crackle everywhere for to emphasize like power things are going on, right? You have to kind of rely on like some of the techniques you learn going to art school, you know what I mean? As opposed to, drawing a superhero. Like you look at like what is it? Yu Yu Hakusho from Yu Yu Hakusho, right? Like there's a whole story there with the main dude and Kurobara and all that. You know what I mean? I only know that because I like Kurobara.
CubeTube says there's an indie game where you were cleaners on a ship in space where they fought aliens. So you'd have to clean up the decks in the aftermath of it, even though you never saw it.
That's funny.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of perfect, like weird slice of life, right? Normal job, normal characters, weird setting.
Right. But yeah, like, I mean, I say personally, you would focus on like particular techniques and styles, just to draw attention to the eye, like, what I mean, for the characters or anything that's going on, because I don't know, most of it, to me, in my head anyway, there's a whole lot of like story going on, you know what I mean? And like storytelling and not so much action. So I think I just fumbled through that one. But yeah, that's basically what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
Technique. Embrace your basket. Was it cross hatching in your basket weave? Don't tell Fernando I said that.
David, did you have any thoughts on that topic?
No, I pretty much agree also with what Jose was saying. I think your approach to how how you're going through and you're drawing it, and how you're going through and you may be muting things down, things like personality, mood, stuff like that can also affect how you go through and and put it out there. You're not, like Jose said, you're not doing a big superhero flash, in your face thing. So, I think of a lot of things like emo and stuff like that. So,
okay. Yeah, you kind of mentioned that notice on making it more personal. I find that with these kind of comics, especially with Black Set is a great example of this. The importance of facial expressions and body language.
Yeah.
Of course, this is, especially with the way comics are written now and the importance of storytelling in a lot of comics and the amount of detail you can get into a comic panel that you couldn't even 10, 20 years ago just because of the way that things were printed. Do you guys ever do that where you look at like a modern comic panel versus like the same like thing from like 40 years ago? Even just Thor's face looks so much different, more detailed. But
I like the older paneling. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like yeah, with my so there's several obvious right Spider-Man issues where they take Spider-Man swinging across what I mean Long Island or whatever, and it's literally a picture of Long Island just tweaked and converted to be
Yeah.
to incorporate it into the panel now, right? So a lot of that stuff you can do now, and just pull a picture online or whatever you do and manipulate it to fit in how you want it to fit in. But back in the day, you had to draw that skyline in.
Yeah.
You had to figure out a way to tweak it out to make it look like it was friggin' Long Island, but not physically draw the entirety of Long Island.
Right. Well, not even like talking about like necessarily backgrounds or like incorporating like other aspects, but the amount of time you can spend and zoomed in and allowing the character to like express themselves, like the Miles Morales like eyebrow twitch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of I mean, I don't know. From what I've read, I don't know if there is a panel of Black Sad where there's not a strong detail on a face somewhere. Like all the characters are so expressive and so like well defined that like, you don't even necessarily need words on some of the panels to understand how people are feeling in that scene.
Yeah, well, think of something. I mean, you don't need to put any words to his mouth, but you could sit there and draw J. Jonah Jameson, and that typical, that spouting, that scrunched up face, and and the anger and expression, the passion that he has on that. You don't have to put words to realize exactly what he's feeling at that time. At that time.
That Peter Parker, like in the bullpen with friggin' Betty, and just all it is like an entire comic of just J. Jonah Jameson like tearing into Robbie. Like you're gonna feel that emotion, you're gonna feel that rage he's friggin' doing because you can see the expression, the twitch of his mustache. That would be a funny issue.
It says too much. What percentage of comic should be slice of life? I think it depends entirely on the story that's being written. I don't know if there's like a set percentage. I think however much the story calls for. I mean, if you are writing a slice of life comic, then that's what you're doing. But I think if you're writing like a more action-based story, then you're going to want to find that balance where you're not necessarily dragging the story along by spending too much time in the minutia and the feelings. You want just enough to make the characters grounded and adds like personal stakes because you don't like Spider-Man just going off and doing his own thing and fighting the Scorpion. You don't want him to get beat because he's Spider-Man, right? But you don't necessarily like have strong emotional ties. But when you relate him to Aunt May, to Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, and you know what the effect would have on those people, like why he can't fail, like that's when you get a lot of stakes. I mean, that's the Gwen Stacy effect. The whole reason why that works is because of these slice of life elements where you saw her interacting with Peter. And we don't forgive the retcon.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. But you did bring up a point earlier, Jose, talked about drawing backgrounds and the visuals that go into creating a background. A lot of slice of life comics I find will opt for a more vague background. Like they might have one or two items, but then just use like a color splash or something just so the characters are the main focal point. Do you find that is the case? And can you guys also kind of talk about, from the art standpoint, why that choice is made and what effect that has for the reader?
In that regard, that's just like even any superhero comic, you want to establish where you're at, right? You want the establishing shot. After the establishing shot, you pretty much just semi-omit background unless you really want to put that detail in, But you can do an establishing shot and then just do a bunch of panels like of people sitting down, you know what I mean? Every now and then, like throw a window in, you know what I mean? It's just to help set like a timeline, right? So like, say people are having a conversation, it's morning, you set you set your establishing shot with like as sun is rising and whatnot. And then as they're conversing throughout the panel, you can establish your window, you know what I mean? And then every so often, like angle it so you can see that window again and see the sun going down or the angle of angle of the sunlight coming in and the shadow of anything that's in front of it, right? Will help like denote like a timeline of how long something's taking. So I think I went off the rail on that one too. But
It's our podcast. You can do whatever you want to.
I know, right? But yeah, I think doing something like that, especially for like, you know what I mean, a slice of life, like there's a whole lot of I feel there's a whole lot of dialogue that goes on because it is, you know, people talking back and forth. I mean, and you know, you want to know, you know, what the character's thinking, how they interact with people. One of my favorite things I enjoy is
CubeTube says establish a shot, building, establish shot room, where characters relation to each other, then act away. Or dialogue away.
right. But yeah, one of my favorite things with, you know, a group that I watch as they play, you know, role playing games is their interaction between each other. Like, yeah, listening to them fight and whatnot is pretty cool and whatnot, and like interacting with other people. But like their interaction with each other, and to me, that's my favorite. Oh man, I interacted in a minute with my cat.
Yes. I mean, yeah, that's you kind of take the same lesson that you would from running like the D&D campaign. Is you say like, okay, here's your setting, describe it. Here's the situation in front of you, describe it, and then you let the characters do their thing. We had a pulling from like last Sunday. We had a moment where it was just supposed to be a one shot, but they apparently had enough fun that they forced me to turn it into a monthly campaign. But they have I just gave them like quick like random roll table backgrounds, right? Where you just roll and say, this is the depth that you characters have, and Eberron, this is why you're in Shar and doing your thing. And a couple of them lined up, they got the same role. So I'm like, okay, your backstory is you guys were on this job together, this happened, you now have this stat, and now you're here, you've met this other person, and blah, 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 blah. And that turned, and then you set the scene with good establishing shots, and then you just let the characters continue on the scene, and there'll be enough momentum just with the characters without necessarily pulling on the background again to drive that scene for a while, where they'll be yelling at each other or having interactions. Because you develop if you have characters that have a grounding in that setting that makes them want to interact with each other. So if your characters are relatable and are grounded, you don't need to do a whole lot in the background because they're going to they're going to carry so much of that attention. Okay. Now popping back over to the writing side of things. And of course, even though this is like writing stuff, Jose, David, feel free to pop in with any other input on this because you guys are also readers of comics, so you're familiar with what we're talking about. So when you look at creating these relatable and realistic characters from a writing standpoint, you may not necessarily look at creating someone like you would a Sentry or Hyperion or even Superman. Even though Superman has a grounding to him, most people cannot necessarily relate to his character in general. Right. My personal technique for developing realistic character traits is giving them what I call a 3-point spine. I give them after I'll figure out what their motivation or goal is when I get to the actual scene. They might have an overarching goal, but for the most part, especially if you're doing like a slice of life moment, their motivation may be completely like based on what's happening around them. So you need the context of the scene to set that. But you can figure out what their motivation is going to be if you know a positive trait about them, a negative trait about them, and something that's kind of neutral. It's hit or miss. Like, if you know those kind of things, you're probably going to have a good idea of how they might interact with things around them. Like, someone could be a very empathetic person. However, they're a little bit of a nihilist. And then the neutral trait that could be good or bad is they're perfectionist. So you have get an idea of like this person is going to like try to understand the people around them and then give them the worst possible advice, but try to make sure that they get it 100%. And so you can kind of, develop an idea.
For a minute there, I thought you were just talking about me, Tim. Man,
yeah. Okay.
Tell me how I trust you like that?
Yeah. Sometimes, if you met Jose, he's like, I guess you're coming from. I need you to look at like the worst possible scenario. Don't be ready for that. And I'm going to give you a bullet point for that. But you got to get an idea of like, and the funny thing about when you create those 3-point skeletons or 3-point spines, you're going to start noticing like even if it's like you just roll randomly on the table, right? You just pull like the writers helping writers source books that give you like a list of traits, right? And you just put random things. As soon as you put a character together that has like, those 3 criteria, you're like, crap, this is my friend, or crap, this is my coworker.
Right.
Because people are multifaceted.
They're going to realize it, right?
Yeah. People are multifaceted, but you can see a lot of those, like, the smaller details come out from the interactions of kind of 3 major, like, moods they have. Not to sound like I've division people to you are 3 traits, but you're a multitude of traits that usually come from 3 major personalities that you kind of interact with each other. So I'm interested to hear from you, Cassis, if you have something similar for developing characters that have,
Yeah, it's probably not as formal. It's probably very similar in the way that, you try and create a character. Most of the characters I create are, start off as baseline, hey, this is just a chill, good person, right? And the thing I try and focus on is what is the vice of this person? So, they're a normal person, but they have a vice of some sort.
Yeah.
Try and find what that vice is. And you may not even articulate it that much in the story, but it is key to the character and it will influence the choices that they make when people are not looking. So, I try and identify the vice and then the goal. There's the overarching goal like we talked about, but just trying to make the goal relatable and not so lofty that it gets lost.
Yeah.
I think if I can try and simplify the goal, like, ultimately they want to go home or they want this thing or they don't want this thing or they hate this thing or they want to get away from this person or something like that. That's actually a hard thing to do, is to try and get a relatable goal and not like this overarching, I want to save the world type goal or cure world hunger type goal. So that's what I try and do. For me, it's not easy, right? To kind of build a story off the simple thing. It sounds very easy sometimes, but to get a whole story out of a simple goal with a normal person who has this like little hang up or vice that they have to navigate through as they go throughout the story. It's kind of what I try and do.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't find the name of it. I don't know what it is, but it comes across my Facebook feed all the time. But there is a good slice of life webcomic about just aliens doing human situations, right?
Mm.
But they over-explain everything using like very like formal, broken like alien English. What we imagine like aliens and speak English like.
Mm.
And you'll have like goals where their goal is just to get ice cream for their kid. And then like something happens and it falls, right? And it is like these small like goals that like most people have probably experienced the same goal or something similar at some point, and then you get like this weird hiccup that kind of messes with their situation. And then you find the thing that you can do to make that amplified.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the vice or the weird trait or something like that might just be like they speak broken English. Like, well, all their goals are realistic though.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And also with a lot of slice of life stuff, you're going to get a lot of like different life path. Like not even like some of it's realistic, some of it's real, some of it's not. Like you're going to get a lot of different life path representation. Like obviously we do not have like an actual understanding of what aliens trying to get ice cream is like. But
speak for yourself.
Because you've not met my family.
Yeah. But you're gonna get a lot of like things where you're trying to represent like what would this look like, or you know, if I'm right, like I lost the tab. I had it up, but I'm just gonna go to this because I was just reading this. But from Boom Studios, also a good one by John Allison. There's a series called Giant Days, which is about younger women going to college and what that change of life looks like that first day, like there, and all that stuff. Obviously, I don't have that experience, but it's interesting then reading like a fictionalized take on that experience, and it kind of what we talked about with the last week, how you can have these more literary comics, things like Mouse, things like We Were Silent or whatever, where you get an experience that you can relate to because it's presented to, like, Mouse allows you to have an understanding of what it was like for the creative family to go through the Holocaust and survive that. Slice of life stuff allows you to kind of do something similar with more modern day representation in a way that is hilarious or funny or more digestible. Like, I don't know what it's like to be a trash man, right? But reading about trash man in space allows me to understand some of the humor that goes into that. If you don't know what it's like to be a Marine or a military contractor, you could go read Terminal Lance, and now you get an idea of, now you're Googling what the green weenie is.
Oh my god!
I mean, I haven't even read it, but now I'm going to have to Google it. Thanks for ruining my search
Please
history.
don't Google that. Not Google that. That's great.
And things like that. It's action based, but it pulls into similar slice of life things. But you want more like the military contractor side of life, you could look up Red Sky, Black Dirt, or Black Sand, which is a bit more on the military contractor side of things. And like you're just there to the understanding like that experience is different than like a regimented military experience. Things like that. Yeah. That's kind of all I have for that point. Did you guys have any thoughts on that yourself, or any things on using comics? I mean, in general, using comics to experience different stories is kind of the key to it all, right? Whether that is something realistic or it is the power fantasy of, as an impressionable 5-year-old kid, maybe one day would grow mutations.
I think, when I was thinking about slice of life comics in general, I think today people and it's probably because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
People get caught up in the fact that in order to be successful as a comic writer or artist, you have to participate in that type of comic, because that feels like, even though there's a lot of graphic novels that become series that people don't really know come from a graphic novel, but for the most part, people think that is what success in comic looks like. And so if you strip that away, if you strip money away, right, and you strip like the Marvel Cinematic Universe away, and you really just wanted to tell a story, I think that opens it up to the slice of life comic so much more, right? Like, just tell a story, like through the medium of a comic, right? Just tell an everyday story about how you felt doing X, or a tragedy. This is what happened when my mother died, or something like that. And that's a very tragic situation, but when you express a story in that way, and you're not in it to make money, and you're not in it to get like this fame, I think rich stories will come out of that slice of life type stuff, and you'll be a better writer, I think, even if you want to do that kind of hyper fantasy or like hyper sci-fi stuff. I think you become a better writer when you can kind of just strip all the other crap away and write a story that comes from you, or maybe something that you observed in a slice of life type format in a comic book, and then you just start practicing that and running with it, like so.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like even like Jeff Lemire, known for doing like Marvel and DC and like doing like these big cave things, did the complete Essex County because he wanted to tell part of his life story. And like there's some really great artwork in there that he did because he's just taking time to like do his own thing and be open and honest about himself. Yeah, I think a lot of people too I think there is. Hollywood has kind of done every writer everywhere a disservice, and that in like even movies about writers, the goal for everyone is to get their script or their book optioned by Hollywood, right?
Yep.
But I mean, you may not be a 1%er, but you could find success and live a comfortable lifestyle just doing webcomics with a Patreon.
Right.
Yeah. CubeTube, our friend Quentin Bedwell. What usually happens, something is successful, then people detect the format and then attempt to duplicate it to get the same success, but it doesn't work that way. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's kind of hit the nail of life on the head when he talked about like you just take time to tell your story and be open and honest with it, and you're going to find a lot of personal success with that. I said, my goal in life was to know that my comic provided like a student or a kid somewhere like 30 minutes of a good time on one afternoon. And then I found out I got used in school and like some of the kids really liked it. Like, oh crap, now I got to find a new life goal.
Now you spread it out, like now regional. Now I got to go national.
Yeah.
Now I got to go international.
Yeah. Okay. At some point, I need to have some kid in Taiwan have 30 minutes on a good afternoon with my book.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what you need is a kid in Taiwan telling you, hey, you got this wrong historically.
Oh, man, I love that. Okay.
We all know who this kid is. Tim is about to get owned.
Yep. Okay. So I guess before we end our discussion here tonight, after Cassisi has been so kind of poignant with our ending notes.
Sorry.
I mean, you nailed it. Okay, show us the so many apparent moments in Jeff Smith's Bone is issue 111.5 versus two characters fixing a roof. Yeah, right. It's just those little moments where you develop a lot of affection for the characters. I think that's why the X-Men cartoon was so successful, especially like X-Men Evolution, and then why people wanted, was there so much nostalgia that they decided to go back and make X-Men 97, is how much time those cartoons spent in the school or in the danger room or the lab, where it's just characters talking and stuff like that. I mean, not to get spoilery, but if you've read the comics, you know about the Gambit Rogue Magneto connection. And 97 spends a lot of time exploring that, and that is just weird romance things that aren't necessarily mutant related, but they're just life related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have the floor for final notes, final thoughts, or recommendations for getting into creating comics in the first place. If someone realizes they have a story about their life or has something that they want to talk about, but is looking to get started, or if you have any final thoughts or things that you want to hit on with regards to sci-fi comics that did not already hit on.
Just for writers, the key to writing is to write. Like, screw format right away. Don't get caught up in is this the perfect story right away? Just write a story, right? It doesn't even have to be formatted correctly. Like you polish things as you go, right? You become better as you go. But yeah, I think that you should just write. And a good way to start is a slice of life. Like, take a moment in your life, even if it's just a trivial moment, something that made you laugh in school today, or a conversation that you heard and you want to kind of build off of it and to have some stupid story come off of that, right? Just write it, Maybe no one ever reads it. It doesn't matter. You're just getting into that habit of telling story, writing story, and the easiest way to do that to complete the story is to take a slice of life. If you start trying to get into the world building fantasy part of it and then write a story, you'll probably get lost. You'll get lost because you don't understand your world enough to get to the end of the story. And I know that sounds really silly, but you can get in this endless cycle. So take a slice of life, write that completely, take another slice of life, write that completely, and you get these reps in, right, of writing stories so that when you do want to tell something that is bigger than your life, right, you can start to frame that up. Well, that kind of sounds like when I wrote about getting lost on the way to the bar and then magically ending up at a restaurant and had the time of my life, right? Like you can do that in a bigger story where the quest was this. They actually ended up over here and saved the world. Like, that sounds very weird, but
So you ended up in Del Taco, right? You just said you
Yeah.
hit a magical place to get food.
to
That's Del
be
Taco.
honest, I almost ended up in Del Taco this past weekend. There is only one. There's only one ring. No. But I almost ended up in Del Taco this last weekend.
Time
But
is a flat circle that begins and ends at Del Taco.
Right.
That's right.
But practice with slice of life. Practice with slice. Practice.
And from an artistic point of view, I feel if you're going to work on paneling, right? You want to do sequential art. Yeah, you want to be able to draw those foreshortened, like over exaggerate action poses and whatnot. But for me, just like speaking Spanish, it's harder to just draw people sitting there having a conversation because you want to move your angle, you want to twist and spin your angle to make it compelling and make it interesting without it looking just boring or two people looking at each other head on, right? So I say that because having a conversation in Spanish for me is very hard. So, but that's what you want to practice. Every editor will see everybody who has these big, awesome action poses, but like draw someone sitting down having a conversation, drinking some coffee. You know what I mean? Like that goes over like super well as well, just because they want to see that you're not just doing the wow, you can do the filler stuff in the middle as well.
Yeah, and I think also from the artistic point is, not going through and doing, like Jose said, the superhero action poses, but just bring the little details, like could be things like the sag in the clothes. It could be the excitement of I just got an ace on, I just aced this test. The excitement, the squiggly lines, the things like that, just to kind of bring a little more. So, like Jose said, you're not just having two static people staring at each other, but you're not taking it to a level where everybody is, over the top. If that's your goal, then, manga is more your, manga
Right.
is more your direction than like the standard comics. But yeah, it's it's the frazzled. It's it's maybe the the person woke up and they just woke up, so their hair is all frazzled and all this stuff. So you're portraying a mood of this is somebody who's disheveled and not ready to hit the day full force. So
Right.
adding stuff like that is nice, and you're bringing certain personality traits into it that shows variation as well. I mean, not everybody is going to do every panel like Kirby did with the guy coming in like this,
Right.
yeah.
Angle. Arms stretched out.
The fate of the
We
world.
did laps for days.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's all part of defining your mood and all that stuff. So definitely some cool things
Right.
to play around there as well.
And if it helps ground, if anybody's whoever's listening, if it helps ground the fact that what we're saying is real. My first narrative assignment at the Huber School was to draw our first day of school. Us from waking up to jumping in the vehicle to getting to school and blah, blah. That was our first narrative. Draw our first day of school.
Yeah.
So how many pictures of people holding a coffee mug were shown at that time?
Yeah, it's just Peter Clinton with two like full mugs, double fisted.
Yeah, he was like one just giant mug. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I guess the reader says like everyone has a story. If you want to tell yours, figure out, how you want to do it, and write it out, and worry about making it exciting or funny in the edits. Just get it out there, and then you'll find out a way to punch it up. But just be open and be honest about yourself, and we'll learn how to tell the story that you want to. This has been That Silverline Show on Tuesday. We have been your hosts, and we are on podcast services around the world and live on YouTube and Twitch Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time. If you're listening to us after the fact and want to join the conversation, like CubeTube, like Katie Shaw, like Pops did, like Jawbone, head on over to our YouTube or Twitch. Give us a subscribe or a follow. You'll get notified when we go live and come and join the conversation. The Madness Comics Network is at 67 subscribers away from 1,000, so head on over there too and see what else the network has to offer you. Next week, we are going to be talking about making mystery and horror comics.
Ooh.
Yeah. So staying on our continued walking around capes, but not necessarily talking about capes, but talking about all the different types of comic genres you can work in, and mystery and horror are some of my favorites.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So be sure to join for next week to learn what goes into those. If you are starting your comics journey and aren't necessarily convinced that you want to write a cape or a cape stories in you, maybe you have something about vampires or werewolves in you that you need to get until
right.
Yeah.
You don't have to draw capes. Scare the bejesus out of us.
Absolutely. Make sure to check out Wednesday OM and Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern times on those specific days. We do have.
Check out, our current Fund My Comic.
Yes.
So check out that. Also, make sure you let your comic shop know that you're interested. I think it's coming up. I'm not sure if it's Kalis this time. I believe it's Kalis this time on the orders. And that Kalis number 2, I believe, should be out within the next couple weeks or so. If you've pre-ordered it, great. If not, check with your comic shop and see if they have a copy. Check it out. Some good stuff.
I just checked it out. Kalis number 3.
Well, Kalis number 3 is on should be on the order form.
It's on the pre-order form, yeah.
Yeah, Kalis 2 should be out actually in the comic shops within the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah. So go and pick your copy of Kalis 2 and then let your shop know that you want to pre-order Kalis 3.
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, that is the more pre-orders you get, the more likely that other comic shops are to carry us. The more we can grow, and the more that we can be in your life day to day.
Okay, that's a little scary, but hey,
yes. We know where you sleep, and no, we won't leave.
Just remember, Jose is watching you
always. And until Jose stops watching you, remember to
make mine
Silverline.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline. You heard me.